my name is Gwen Linde, and I live in Sparks, Nevada. And I was born in Virginia, at Langley Air Force Base, Virginia. My father was in the Air Force, and I spent 26 years myself as an officer in the Air Force, as a pilot in the Air Force. And my spiritual history is kind of blank. We were not raised with any faith, my brothers and I. We were never taken to church. And in fact, I think that prior to becoming Catholic, I had been to church maybe twice in my entire life. I've been to a church service twice. I had been in and out of a couple of churches as tourists, to see the art and things like that, but actually having sat through a church service. One of them was at Officer Training School, and we had the choice between sitting in the barracks all day on Sunday or going to the chapel. And so going to the chapel was a way to get out of the barracks, and so that's why I went. But I had no faith and no spiritual life at all. And so how this all started for me was, I'm thinking it's about 5-6 years ago now. I was listening to a radio show, to a radio interview on the car radio, a show that I listen to in the morning sometimes. And the host was interviewing a man who had just written a book. And the man's name was Matt Baglio, and the book he had written was called The Rite. And it was about exorcism. And it was kind of interesting, and I kind of listened to the interview, and I kind of laughed because I knew better. I was an atheist. I had nothing to do with religion, and I thought this was pretty silly and pretty funny, but, it was haha. And something, for whatever reason, I think I know the reason now, but for whatever reason I decided I needed to buy that book. And this is totally out of character for me. I would not normally buy a hardback book that had just been published. I'm pretty cheap. I would wait until it came out in paperback, and probably borrow it from somebody. But I decided I needed that book right now, so I went to Amazon, I got the book. And I thought I would read it kind of like as science fiction. It's a pretty entertaining story. And if you haven't read The Rite, it's a story, they made a movie about it, and the book, by the way, is a lot better than the movie. The book is actually true, it's what actually happened, and the movie is a Hollywood production. But the book is about an American priest. I think he's from Santa Rosa or someplace like that. He's somewhere near the Bay Area. And he's been selected by his bishop and asked by his diocesan bishop to be the exorcist for the diocese. And the bishop has asked the priest to go to Rome to be trained as an exorcist. So the book is the story of this priest's journey to Rome and learning how to be an exorcist. And so he spends the first month or a couple months in Rome. He's very frustrated because he doesn't understand Italian. And it's all lectures in a conference room, none of which he understands. And he has a heck of a time finding a translator and things like that. But towards the second half of his training in Rome, he actually goes out on an internship, so to speak, with a real exorcist on some real exorcisms. And I'm pretty sure that the exorcist in the story, the Italian exorcist, the Roman priest, is Father Gabriel Amorth, who's a very famous exorcist. And so our American priest is accompanying this Roman priest as he goes out and he sees people that are possessed. Or he talks to people to determine whether or not they are possessed. So people come to him and say, I think, Father, I'm possessed, so on and so forth. And so the American priest is understanding almost none of this because he doesn't speak Italian. And I don't think he has much Latin either, and the prayers are all in Latin. But there comes to a point where one day the Roman priest is seeing two women. One is a religious sister, and the other is her companion. And the religious sister has been possessed for many years. And I came to understand that, that exorcism doesn't happen. It's not like the demon gets chased out. When Jesus does it, yes, but when a Roman priest does it, it takes a while. So they have to do the rite, sometimes for many, many years, to rid the person of the demon. So the scene is they're in a room. The American priest is in the room, but he's sitting kind of in the background in the shadows. And there's really no way that the two women, when they come into the room, know that the American priest is there. He's very much in the shadows, and he's not making any noise. He's quietly observing. And the Roman priest starts the rite, and he's reading the prayers in Latin. He's got a crucifix, just like you've seen in the movies. And he's reading the prayers, and the woman is reacting rather violently. She's screaming and yelling and making all kinds of strange noises and whatnot. And she only speaks Italian, this religious sister. And there's at one point where in the exorcism where she turns around and in perfectly clear English, she says something to the American priest that is very personal. It's something about his relationship with his mother that only he would know. The only way that's the only way. I mean, the priest knows this. His now dead mother probably knows this, but there's no way this Italian woman who doesn't speak English would know this. And at that moment, as I'm reading this book, I realized that the devil was real. And then a few seconds later, I'm not stupid, I realized, oh, if the devil is real, then so is God. And as soon as I, in my heart and in my mind, acknowledged that God was real, I felt an overwhelming presence. I won't say that there were words, but there were words, if you know what I'm saying. And what he said to me, I know now that it was Jesus. And he said, you're right. He said, I do exist. And he said, and there's a war on right now, and you're on the wrong side. And I want you on my side, but you have to decide. And you have to make up your mind, and you need to do it soon. And like I said, I'm no dummy. I realized I'm in the military, I can follow orders. And I realized, okay, well, I need to follow Jesus. There's no question about it. And then I thought, okay, well, realize I've never been to church. I don't know anything about Christianity. I've never read the Bible. At this point, I really didn't even know intellectually that Jesus was God when I first started reading. That's how ignorant I was of all things religious. And so I was doing a little research on the internet, and my first impulse was, okay, I've got to find a Christian church of some sort to go to and to learn about Jesus. I knew that. And my first impulse was, I kind of want to go to a church where the people look like me, right? I want to go to a place where I'm comfortable, where the people are kind of like me politically, and economically. I don't want to be with people that are different. And then again, I had a thought that was not my own, and I recognized it wasn't my own, that said, no, what I need to do is I need to find the truth. And I need to change my life to align with the truth. I don't need to I already have me. I don't need more of me. What I need is the truth. And I was doing some research and some reading, a lot on the internet, some in some books. I'm a very fast reader, so this only took me a few days. When I first read the passage in St. Matthew's Gospel, where Peter confessed that Jesus was the Son of God, and then Jesus said to Peter, you are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church. And I'll be with you till the end of time, and the gates of hell will not prevail against my church. And it was clear to me that was the church I needed. I needed to be in the church that Jesus had founded, not in somebody else's church, that somebody had, a debate or whatever and decided to start their own church. I needed to be in Jesus' church. And I knew that was the Catholic Church. There was only one church that was continuous from St. Peter. So I read, hey, Jesus said to St. Peter, I'm building my church on you, and we have St. Peter in Rome today. Well, he's in Rio de Janeiro today, but so I decided, okay, I need to find a Catholic church, and I need to go to the service and find out what's going on, right? Because I had no idea about any of this. So I found, I actually got out the phone book and looked in the elevator. There was a Catholic church, I'd never seen it before, by the way, but that was only about 10 minutes from my house. And so I found out when their services were, and I went to a 5 o'clock Sunday evening Mass. First Mass ever, my third time in church in my entire life. First time in a Catholic church. So I was watching this. It was quite entertaining. I thought this is kind of cool. People stood up, sat down, stood up, sat down, stood up, sat down. You know how it goes. And they knelt, then they stood up, sat, And I had no idea what a priest was. I didn't know. I knew there seemed to be a guy who was in charge, and he was wearing a robe. That was kind of cool. But I had no idea what he was doing or what his role was. I didn't know what transubstantiation was. I didn't know what communion meant. I'd never read the Bible. I didn't know what the Lord's Supper was. I didn't know anything about this. But as I'm watching the Mass, and we got to the consecration, after the consecration, when the priest elevated the host and then the chalice, I had an electric shock through my body that just paralyzed me. And I knew that what the priest was holding in his hands was God. And I said, that's for me. This is what I need. And that's all I needed. That was it. The next day I went back to the church when the office was open and signed up for RCIA classes and went from there. So that's my conversion story. So I think the bottom line is if when I made the act of faith in my mind and I said, there's a God, he was there. And when I understood and acknowledged that he was in the Catholic Church, he was there. And so this was my experience, that if you open your heart and you open your mind, he's there. And he wants you. He wanted me, and he certainly wants you on his side.